Hey guys, I'm Mark, and today is potato planting day. I got Holly out here with me. She's going to be my helper. This is one of the beds I'm going to plant potatoes in, but there's some work that I want to do before I get into that. You can see the bed is covered over with the same plastic that I used on the tomatoes last year. And it's done a really good job at keeping the weeds down over the wintertime. So before I get started, I'm going to want to pull all this plastic up, pull the weeds out, and then I'm going to till in a bunch of this, it's called mushroom soil. It's what they grow mushrooms in. We actually live not too far. Yeah, don't eat it. Are you eating it? We actually don't live too far from the mushroom capital of the United States, they call it. And so we're able to get a lot of this for pretty cheap, I would assume, relative to most other places in the country. But what it basically is I think it's manure, and there's straw mixed in there. But it's retired, it's expended for what their use is for it, and then they just wholesale it out once the mushroom farms are done with it to people like us. And we get it in by the truckload, and it's just really good stuff. Basically, the overall concept is just to try to incorporate more organic matter into this soil. If I pull this piece of plastic away, I can show you. Yeah, look for worms. Like I said, the plastic did a really great job. Stop with the mushroom soil. She wants everything that she's not supposed to have. You can see the plastic kept the weeds out pretty good over the winter. I'm just got to pull a few extra ones from around the edges and where the holes are, where the tomatoes were. But overall, it's a pretty heavy clay soil. This garden is the first year, well, the second season that it's going to be running, I guess you would say. So the only thing in these beds so far is 1 yard, well, I don't know if it's a yard bucket, but it's 1 bucket from our backhoe of cow manure. 1 bucket of cow manure from up the street. We have a organic dairy farmer that lives right up the street that would bring the stuff down. It's the dry stuff. It's not like liquid cow manure like you would use in a manure spreader. But it's 1 part that and 2 parts native topsoil. And that's all that's in here right now. And it did a great job last year with the tomatoes, I feel. But I still over the years obviously need to keep incorporating more and more stuff into the soil, especially organic matter. This is going to be some really good hummus, I think. So I'm going to probably put about 10 wheelbarrows, I figure, into this whole bed, and that should get my soil, I think, to the consistency of where I need it to be. Nice and loose. I want the soil to be nice and loose so the potatoes have plenty of room to stretch out and whatnot. My overall goal is to get maybe 4 to 5 times the potatoes out of it as what I put into it. Hey, piggy. So if I put 20 pounds in this bed, I want to get 80 to 100 pounds out of it. So that's the plan, and I'm going to get this all worked up and get the soil conditioned, and then I'm going to move on to the next step. All right, guys, now I'm ready to plant the potatoes. I've got the bed all prepared, and I've got my little helper here with me. She likes to dig out trenches too. I've got the bed all prepared, and I'm going to plant 2 different types of potatoes this year. They're my 2 favorites. They're Yukon Golds, and then I have another bag of red Pontiacs. I've grown several different varieties in the past, but these 2 always seem to do super well in my area, especially because I like to plant potatoes early in the spring and then harvest somewhere around mid-July. And these 2 varieties, for whatever reason, just do super well for me. They swell up really big. They're pretty early. I don't have to wait too long for them. And here we have, in the Chesapeake area, we have really hot summers. So when the potato is maturing and you get into that late, hot summer, it puts the plant under a lot of stress. So it seems like to me, the varieties that come in earlier, like the Yukon Gold or the red Pontiac. They kind of have their fair share of time to plump up and get ready to go before all that heat arrives and starts causing issues on the plants and on the potatoes themselves. So I got my bed prepared. It's all tilled in. The soil is nice and loose and easy to work. These potatoes, I'm going to plant 4 rows. 4 rows, they're going to go this way, as you can tell. And within the row, I'm going to plant each potato about 12 inches apart. I have my little stick here. It's a little measuring stick. And that just kind of helps me stay, yeah, it's just an easy way to keep them separated and at 12 inches without having to lay out a tape measure and get my tape measure all dirty and stuff like that. Before I dig the trench, it's kind of straight. It's straight enough for me. The way I get it like this, especially this is an easy trench because it's so close to the edge of the bed. So it's not that hard to keep it straight, but when I start getting into the middle of the bed with my other rows, it gets kind of challenging. So I always like to use a string. I measure out exactly where my lines are going to go, where my rows are going to go beforehand, and I lay out a string. And the string makes it really easy. Once I have the string in place, I take a stick and I just follow right down along the string like that. Same thing when I'm planting seeds of any kind. But I can't dig a trench with a string in the way. I mean, I guess I could, but it's just a lot easier to do it this way. So just for example's sake, you know, I have my line there. I don't know if the camera can pick up that line, but I can see it well enough. And then I'll just dig out my trench right along that line that I made. In order to avoid walking on the soil as much as possible, it helps to just, for me, to just have a hoe or something where I can actually reach in and do this without having to walk on my beds. I am going to have to step in there a little bit probably to plant them, but again, less is better. But as far as depth goes, I don't feel that they need to be planted as deep in this type of situation as if I were to be planting them like in a long row, because these potatoes are planted in a bed. They're going to be rows that are fairly closely spaced to one another. So there's going to be a lot of foliage growth up on top that's going to all kind of come together, and it's going to create a lot of shade. Gesundheit. It's going to create a lot of shade. And the reason people bury their potatoes deeper or hill them, it has nothing to do with production. It doesn't produce any more potatoes. It just simply keeps the sunlight from reaching the top of the potato and turning it green. So you got to find that medium of how deep you want to plant them, because the deeper you plant them, the safer you are, obviously, but also the deeper you plant them, the more of a pain it is later on to be digging them up when they're that much further down in the ground. So about 4 or 5 inches, like I say, is going to do well for me, I think. And once I cover these over, they'll cover over flat like that, and I will hill them. So it doesn't, you know, when you look at this right now and I cover it over flat, that's probably about 2 inches right now. But in a couple weeks, when the potato comes through and it's about this high, I'm going to bury those plants with the soil that's in between the rows, and that should be plenty. If I feel like it, I might wind up covering the whole bed in straw after I hill them. Just give it that little bit extra layer of weed control, and also straw really helps keep some moisture in, which the potatoes really seem to like. So that's about it. I'm going to just keep on planting right on down the line. Whole potatoes. I'm planting whole potatoes this year. I am planting a couple weeks later than I would have liked to. Typically around St. Patrick's Day is about when I like to plant them ideally. But you know, life has other things in mind sometimes, and here I am 2 weeks later. So it's going to just help me out to plant whole potatoes this year. I'll get a few more shots out of each one. In other words, if I were to like chit these, they call it chitting. When you cut them in half or cut them into thirds, everywhere there's an eye, you know, you can cut a chunk out of that and make two plants, so on and so forth. You could do that, but you're really going to get a single smaller plant. Works really well if you're doing a real long line, because you can put them in tighter together. But in this case, I'm looking for bushy plants that all kind of grow together. So if I plant a whole potato that sends off 3 or 4 runners or plants or whatever you want to call them, then that's just going to be fine with me. And I think I've got enough potatoes. If I did my math correctly, I've got 22, well, the bed is 24 feet long and it's 8 feet wide, and I'm doing 4 rows. So that means I would have 22 potatoes in each row times 4, which is 88 potatoes, I think. Yeah, 88 potatoes. So I'm going to plant my 88 potatoes, and then I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Okay. Okay guys, I've got 88 potatoes planted. I've got them coming from 2 different sources. One place where I got my potatoes was on the verge of selling out, so I only got a few bags, 4 bags from there, and then I got the rest somewhere else. But they're both Yukon Golds, so we'll see if they match each other. These ones look a little bit more farther along than these ones do. But we'll see. They're all Yukon Golds, so they say. So that's good enough for me. So right now, I'm just going to cover them up flat and even. I'm not going to leave any hills or try to hill them right now or anything like that. I'm just going to smooth this whole bed over, cover everything up. Probably rake it out nice and smooth, and then I'll just wait for a couple more weeks and the plants should start coming up. About when they're about this tall, I'm going to go ahead and hill them over, and maybe I'll put a video together to show you when I do that. Anyway, that's how I'm doing it. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.